you got any little noise back there. Welcome. Thank you for coming to the GAR Hall Special Event Series. I think this is about number 45 we've done in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. During COVID, we took it online for Zoom, and we did approximately 25 during the whole COVID. We were able to bring in people from all over the country, which was great. But we're so happy to be back here live. So before we start, just a few things. Our next event that's coming up that will be here is actually December 9th. It's a Saturday night, and we're having the Heartland Radio Country Band is coming in, and we're having a country Christmas. So that's actually going to go online tonight. So you can start getting tickets tonight. It'll be on our website, and you can go on Facebook and find it. After that, we'll be back here again on the 18th, and we've got Michael Johnson, who is a NASA Solar System Ambassador, and he's going to give a talk on the James Webb Space Telescope. So that will be here. It'll be about an hour talk. Then we're all going to go over to Lawson Tower, where we're going to meet the guys from the South Shore Astronomical Society, and we're going to have a stargazing party. So that's going to be another fun one. Again, that's already up online, so you can check that out already. Lots of other stuff going on, our bell concerts, everything's online. Please check our Facebook page, like it. Please consider becoming a member so we can bring these programs to you. Before we start, please silence your cell phones, if you've got one, okay? Restrooms are right here to your left. There are 3 of them right back there. Emergency exits right where you came in, to the left and the right. And now I'm proud to bring you Michael Thompson from Stellwagen, and he will tell you, he's got a long list of, yeah, you do. Anyways, I'll let him tell you all that. But thank you for coming and enjoy the presentation.
Thanks, Gene. Everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Good. Damage. Wow. So thank you all for coming tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces here. So if you've heard this talk before, I'll try not to repeat myself too much. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. We have a lot of slides. I want to say thanks to Gene and to Steve for everything you've done to lend us the Gar Hall, well, not lend us, but rent us the Gar Hall for our latest Sanctuary Advisory Council meeting, which was a huge help to us. And we've now chosen this hall as our primary meeting spot for Stellwagen. So it's great to keep it local instead of being bouncing around to Rockland and other meeting halls. This is great. So my name is Mike Thompson. I'm a geographer at Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary, so part of NOAA. I'm a Scituate native, grew up here in Scituate, graduated class of '96, so I'm a sailor. And I worked on a gillnet fishing boat, the Pyewacket, for about 5 years in high school and college doing dogfish. And now I'm lucky enough to be working over at the Sanctuary office since 2001. So we have a lot of cool work to talk about and I have tons of slides. So feel free to interrupt me at any time if I'm talking too fast and I get really excited. So, and lots of flashy stuff on screen because I like the attention up there instead of on me. So like you see that, that's probably fine. So first of all, for those of you who aren't familiar with the National Marine Sanctuary Program, we are a system across the whole country. We fall into NOAA, so National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. There's 15 sanctuaries across the country. We're the only one here up in the Northeast, which is Stellwagen Bank. So we really are the shining star for most of the East Coast, we'd like to say. We're one of the few sanctuaries that's totally offshore. A lot of the ones on the West Coast have land to them, so if you want to work in a sanctuary, if you want to do any work offshore in California, you have to be working in a sanctuary. Here, you actually have to get on the boat to go out to the sanctuary. So you guys coming out to talks like this is really helpful to us because it's our way to show you what's out there if you haven't been out there. If you're not familiar with Stellwagen, I would show of hands how many people have been out to Stellwagen before. It's probably a pretty good number. Good. It's my favorite place in the world to spend my entire adult life out there. So it's about the same size as the state of Rhode Island. Rhode Island doesn't like us to say that, but we're going to take it. It's about 638 square nautical miles and it falls everywhere between Cape Ann and Gloucester area down to Provincetown. So essentially, if you're coming in and out of Boston Harbor, you're going to go through the sanctuary. We're all federal land, and part of the reason that the sanctuary is special is mainly because of Stellwagen Bank. And what makes the bank special here is if we go ahead and drop this down and extend it, you can see that there's a very shallow sandy bank that's out there, where a lot of the outflowing happens, everything happens as the tides come through, pushes over, and creates this sand bank that gets shallow, so it's like 25 meters at the shallowest, like 60, 75 feet. And it is a hot spot not only for birds, whales, fish, fishermen, and whale watching. It's really the hot spot out there. So Stellwagen, we happen to be a federal boundary, but the animals don't care about the boundaries. And the bank was there long before us. In fact, it was there so long before us that back in some of the very first maps out there, in 1616 by John Smith, that boundary of the sanctuary wasn't there. You can see that they drew a circle there. And on that circle, you can see this bit of a ship. And what a ship meant on the maps during that time was that it was a great fishing spot. And then a few years later, they reprinted that map and they added all these cod heads underneath, which had never really been done before around here. Saying, not only is this a good fishing spot, this is like the fishing spot. So really, really cool to have that map. I have it hanging up in my house. I've been told by my boss, because we have 10 of us that work at the sanctuary office here in town, so I'm sort of a mid-level GIS data guy, research guy. But it's always good to remember that we are part of a much larger agency. There's millions of federal employees. We fall under NOAA, and then under NOAA there's a whole bunch of different branches, including the Weather Service that we're all familiar with, NOS, which is what we fall under, and then there's the Fisheries Service, which is different than what we fall under, so we work under a little bit different. And we're all under the Department of Commerce, so we're really set up a little bit different than like a national park, which is sort of looked upon as something that's heavily protected. We're a little bit more like the Forest Service, the way it's still extraction and stuff going on. So it's kind of good to put everything into context like that. But it is interesting. We like to remind everybody there's $6 billion that goes into NOAA. We only get 0.08%, and Stellwagen only gets $1.5 million a year, which for a building and 10 employees is actually not a lot of money. So keep that in context when we go through this too. But I threw in some slides here. If you haven't been out to First Cliff and get over to the old Coast Guard station, it's a Roosevelt-style Coast Guard station. I don't remember the year it was built, but the next slide will tell me. This is what we like to call our sanctuary campus, so all the red roof buildings are us here, and here is our boathouse. It was transferred to us, most of us grew up and remember the Coast Guard station being here in town. It was very sad to see it go. I remember when we first moved in, there were holes in the wall, the place was falling apart, and they sold it to NOAA for $1. And then we renovated it up until 2004 when we fully moved in. Found some photos of the sanctuary. There's our boat. That's actually our annex building. It's right next to our main building. It was floated in, I think, from Boston on a barge and brought up. It was a tower, a fire tower that famously had a fire and burned down. And then you can see a lot more buildings there. I think maybe the Pettit's here, maybe their house is up over there or whatnot. And our boathouse is actually in the road. Part of the rest of our campus is really, the sanctuary is not our office, the sanctuary is out there. This is how we get to the office, how we get out there. That's our lovely boathouse, which gets some great wave action and a lot of surface swimming under during certain times of the year, but it's a really robust pier. If you haven't been down to it, we're trying to get access so people can get out there. It's one of the best parks in town to go out on. And we have our floating dock and our research vessel and a couple other fire and police boats and law enforcement boats that are there. And again, I wasn't around to see. I remember when there was a rail system on this boathouse, but they used to bring the boats in and up and down the rail system. So our superintendent who's in charge of our sanctuary, he's the old captain of the Port of Boston, Pete DeCola, so he loves these photos. And of course, we're all part of the Etrusco thing, and there's a lot more we can talk about that some other time. If you haven't seen it, this is our research vessel off. It's always that beautiful out, right? Great shot. I can't remember who took it, but I'll remember that in a minute. It's a great boat. It's a 50-foot research vessel. It holds 16 people, so the captain and first mate, and then 14 scientists on board. Very capable boat. When she was originally built, she was supposed to be 65 feet and had a little bit more room, a little more space, but last minute they cut the funding, cut the boat in half, and shrunk it down, so it was a little tight in there. But it's actually been a really, really good boat. We run it 173 days a year, so that's actually a lot of hours. We've had it since 2006, and it's a great boat vessel. So, most of our trips are all day trips, so if anybody comes out with us for some some of you here I know have been out with us before. Leave it on ice, come back at sunset type trips. We don't typically sleep on. I'm not going to bore everybody with this, but it's important to just remember, sanctuaries does fall under federal water. We don't have a lot of rules of our own, but we do follow all the federal authorities and rules that are out there, in particular the Clean Waters Act, the Magnuson Fisheries Management Act, which all rule the water that we operate in, and then the state authority, because anything that has boundaries with the sanctuary, there's overlapping things there. But really, the sanctuary, like I said, is a sanctuary in paper for a lot of part, but there's some important things that it does do. And I tried to highlight in yellow here, just saying, discharging or doing anything to injure sanctuary resources. This has been really important recently. A lot of you have heard about the nuclear power plant discharge thing. We're one of the few people that actually have some teeth in our regulations that can maybe do something about it. That's one of our big focuses. Drilling or altering the seabed. There's no oil rigs out here. There's no oil exploration and stuff like that, which could have been a possibility. And we're not allowed to remove, or anybody's allowed to remove historical resources like shipwrecks and things like that. And same when it comes to marine mammals and seabirds and normal things. This all just says, you can't interfere with Navy vessels and stuff like that, which I don't think we want to do anymore. So I always find it good to put these pictures up because people always say, well, what the heck do you do? Right? And I think it's one of the big things is, well, we could have hopper dredgers out there. Sand is one of the biggest commodities that's out there right now. Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is looking to get as much sand off of the bottom to rebuild beaches and reclaim things from climate change and increase water levels. So they're looking at pulling out strips of sand that are like 7 miles wide, 7 miles long, 2 miles wide, and like 30 feet deep. So they could essentially remove the entire thing really quickly if they want to. The sanctuary prohibits that, so that's a good thing. These hopper dredgers have become really, really popular. And in fact, one of the main reasons, and this is often overlooked, that the sanctuary was formed because fishermen, conservationists, and politicians alike all came together to say, hey, there's this big project called the Big Dig, and it's going to be really difficult for us to get all these trucks driving through the tiny little roads in Boston. Man, this is a sandy bank right offshore. Why don't we just barge all that stuff in there and remove the bank and bring it in? And everybody's like, whoa, this is like #1. Have you seen where Gloucester is? Have you seen where Plymouth and Bedford and Scituate are? So everybody got together and said, we need to protect this very special fishing spot in, a good spot for whales, a good spot for a whole bunch of other things. So that gets overlooked a lot of times. I think that was the biggest win long before I was here. Like I said before, oil rigs, we do not have them here. That could have been an option. And this is sort of, everybody's been paying a lot of attention now to offshore wind. I know that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management hosted a meeting with fishermen last night at the library, I believe. They were in our office yesterday morning talking about, the new BOEM has released their final wind area proposals. If you're not familiar with the wind area proposals, I didn't know all the details of it, but I'm learning quickly. Like I said, I'm a mapping guy, so I find it much easier to see, here's the sanctuary. All those green areas are the latest call areas where they're planning on putting in, thousands of turbines. So it is going to happen in there. They're looking right now at the states of Massachusetts and Maine need to get up to 13 gigawatts of power. And Massachusetts has this strange little rule called ISO 1200, which means that you can only bring in like 1,200 megawatts of power at a time via cable. So even though they're not putting wind turbines in the sanctuary, they are putting a bunch of turbines out there, and they still need to get cables into land. This is hot and heavy. It's coming in fast. We don't have right ways to permit. We're setting up the rules of the first sanctuary to do this. There's lawyers involved all over the place. This was my crude attempt in a map yesterday during our meeting to say this is the likely potential routes that we could get cables coming through the sanctuary. And right now, there's no way to permit them not to do that. All those dots are things that we want them to miss. Red dots are shipwrecks. Blue dots are long-term modernizations. Black things are boulders that are really important to cod habitat and stuff like that. And just that age-old question is, I thought the sanctuary was allowed for you to do anything to the seabed. But we also don't want to stand in the way of renewable energy, and we're getting a lot of pressure. So it's a careful balancing act, but everybody's, like I said, there's only 10 of us on the mapping person in the place. So, but working a lot with the state and everything to figure this out. This is hot off the press. Finally, I like this one. This is fun, especially for those who like to gamble at all. There was a guy named Google, not that Google, a different Google, but he was actually planning, hey, it's only 60 feet deep. We can just fill it out there with a whole bunch of fill and make a
island casino out there. Like every 10 years or so, he floats this forward again. A real possibility. Could have been fun. I was hoping our research station would do it. So an exaggeration, but the sanctuary could look something like this, and it does. But that all being said, it's also a place that, we suddenly come in and drop these boundaries in over a really urban sanctuary, right? I mean, it's rich in history, a lot of fishing, a lot of shipping, just a lot of activity in general, right? So that gives us a very difficult mission. It's our mission is really to conserve, protect, and enhance the biodiversity of the sanctuary, which really means, shipwrecks, everything from the seafloor all the way up to the birds and marine mammals gets to Lake. It's sort of our charismatic megafauna that we have. But all that, all allowing for compatible use. And there's no definition of what compatible use is, right? So it's trying to figure out the meeting spot where we can try to do that properly, hopefully, figure out what a baseline is and try to conserve it so that we can continue to do what we do. So I'll talk a little bit about some of those three legs of the stool. I'm not an expert in maritime heritage, I'm more of a whale person, so I apologize if I mess any of this up, but we have plenty of maritime archaeologists that would love to talk about this. The sanctuary is rich in shipwrecks. Like I said, it's the busy port of Boston. This is a really pretty cool shot of two schooners that collided at sea and went down together, the Paul Palmer and Louis B. Crary, and actually went down like that. It was a 5-masted and 4-masted schooner, if I'm seeing that right. And it's one of our 6 sites that are on the National Register of Historic Places. Part of the sanctuary's job is to go out there, inventory all of them, because at the time we didn't know what was there besides what had been reported or what USGS had found. Protect them, which typically we don't really have a good way to do that besides with holding locations, but more recently we've been giving out locations because that seems to be the best way to protect them. And then just interpret them and how they change over time and gather any information that we can, especially if there's lives lost to a lot of these. This is our, we like to call it, New England's Titanic. Everybody's familiar with the Portland Gale opening up the North River and all down here. That same storm is also the same storm that put down this steam-powered ship where all hands were lost. What's neat about this vessel is that at the time they had been given, I can't remember the word that I'm looking for, but when everybody goes out, they leave a manifest of how many people were on board. They didn't do that before then, so they actually don't know how many people were lost. And after this, they started doing that. So we have lots of videos. There's been a Discovery Channel show on this, and John Fish and some other people that discovered it have done a lot of work on this. So we appreciate everything that they do. As you know, most of the sanctuary is really deep. It's hard to get to, so the way that we have to get to them is often by using remotely operated vehicles or different side scan sonar to find them. In some spots we have some scuba diving, but some of it's really deep. Portland sits at 380 feet deep, although we haven't had people dive on it. It's pretty risky. Our maritime archaeologist, John Luzo, who I thought might be here tonight, who a lot of us are familiar with, he helped write this book with actually maritime archaeologists Matt Lawrence and Deborah Marks, and it talks all about these shipwrecks. So I urge you to check it out and come by our office sometime. We have extra copies of it. The new buzzword for maritime heritage now is maritime cultural landscapes, because what often gets missed is the sort of human involvement in that shipping side of things instead of just the shipwrecks. So here is sort of the definition of it, but for us it's really looking also at whales, whaling, fishermen, and the transportation of different types of ships and gas in the sea. So this number's gone up a lot since this slide was made. This is a graphic that was drawn by taking a bunch of photos of what it would look like if you could actually peel back the ocean out there. If you can think, sometimes you're only in less than 100 feet of water, but we can't really see what's there. It's only from here to the other side of the room. And this is a good way to do that with a lot of light on it. So we worked with them to try to show some of our most popular species. And one of the things we always struggle with here in New England is we can't compete with the Florida Keys and Hawaii and other places like that just have these beautiful photos when we have maybe 5 feet of visibility in dark water. That being said, there's a lot of fishing that goes on in the sanctuary. We do not regulate fishing. We've had different opportunities to kind of work with fishermen, but we work through the Fisheries Management Council, which does regulate fishing. I don't see it coming anytime soon directly for sanctuaries. We have the ability to regulate vessels, I think, a little bit, but typically fishing is not one of those that are categorized. There's tens of millions of dollars extracted from the sanctuary. It's really hotspot for fishing, right? And thousands of fishermen every year, including me when I was a kid. My parents made me put this one in, so I fished on that. Some of you might be familiar with our 5 came out of that sort of background, and I appreciate that, and I think that's kind of where my heart still falls, and I'm trying to look to ways to hopefully protect the fishery so that it can continue to keep this small town of Scituate fishing for the next, bunch of centuries. So, that being said, it's important to show where fishing is actually occurring. So if you look, here's the sanctuary boundary, and Scituate's right here. Over here on the left-hand side, everywhere in red is areas that has been fished. Fishermen report that vessel trip reports are different on electronic monitoring system. But in general, you can see that they're fishing where the bank is. You can almost see the bank pop up there. So the northwest corner, southwest corner, southeast corner, and Jeffrey's Ledge. This is how many pounds are landed in each of those areas. This box right here is called the Western Gulf of Maine closure area. So those vessels aren't allowed to fish in there typically. And then on the right side there are your party and charter guys. So your six-pack, the charter boats, and big party boats like the Captain John boats and stuff that are really not fishing typically. So virtually every sort of corner in sanctuary is fished. Being a GIS guy, I always find it interesting to so what's important and get the message out there to people that the bank is really what's important here. Here you're looking at pounds landed just in 3D, and in the top right you can see up there that most of our fish are over sand. So sand habitat's really important. That'll come up again a little bit later, just where the sand mining things turn into something. Everybody doing okay? So marine mammal protection, another leg of the branch, my favorite branch. These two whales in me, I felt a little embarrassed the first time I used this slide. This is teapot and tectonic, two female whales. I made that animation backwards, see if I can do it again. Teapot actually comes up, usually you picture a whale coming up with their mouth wide open and feeding on whatever it was, and of course the naturalist had to call me out on it with the talk. No, that's backwards. That whale actually comes up and opens its mouth up and drops down. That's all the water doing. So really cool. The sanctuary is a hot spot for whales, baleen whales in particular. So baleen whales mean humpbacks, fin whales, minkies, and white whales. Here you can see the image from our National Center for Coastal Ocean Mapping. Helped us with some of the larger scale mapping projects. We can't say we're the hot spot, but we can certainly say we're one of the hot spots along with the Tonga Bank and some of the Great South Channel. Not surprising, therefore, because of our close proximity to Boston and our amazing whales that are feeding. We've been listed multiple times as one of the top 10 places in the world for whale watching. They're doing a lot of feeding here, they're doing a lot of acrobatics here. It's really a nursery. There's a lot of females here with their kids, getting big and fat so they can make the trip back down to the Dominican Republic for the winters. At the same time, because of that proximity to Boston, there's a lot of whales and a lot of ships. So sites like this are a pretty common thing that you see on the sanctuary, big ship coming through, feeding whale. The whales don't just appear at night. You can't really see them. It takes a while to slow it down and avoid. So one of the things that scientists we need to do is we need to go through and say, okay, well, how do we get data, right? So the data that we get is by looking at ships. Get that in there. Here we go. Is looking at all the ships that come through the sanctuary. So we have over 500 vessels. This slide's a couple of years old at this point, but pretty common site. It's a growing port. I know there's some limitations with the water depth coming into Boston, but as the Panama Canal gets bigger and bigger, we're seeing bigger and bigger vessels and more vessels in the area. And if these wind farms go in, we're going to get a lot more vessels that are supporting that as well. If anybody's looking for an internship, we always have somebody look up all the vessels that go through and make a slide. So. Lots of ships, lots of whales, not surprising, lots of ship strike. It's not only a hotspot for whales, it's also a hotspot on the East Coast for ship strike. There's a fin whale on the front of a large ship, and this is a chopped up right whale from a big propeller. So again, we can't say that they were actually struck here, but we can say that the dead whale showed up here, so one would think that it could be there.
So, excuse me.
Yes?
If a ship hits a whale, do they report it or they keep going?
It depends. The larger ships sometimes don't even know. Sometimes we can tell on the AIS data when we're watching, geez, they suddenly slowed down a knot and a half for no reason, and there's also a dead whale in front of the box.
Okay.
Other times we'll send out, law enforcement to go dive on the vessel to see if there's any signs of it. Otherwise, in general, shippers are out and captains are out on the water and love whales more than we all do. They love the water. They really like the information, and they're pretty good about reporting to us.
Right.
That being said, their lawyers don't always like reporting to us, right? So it's a tough thing to know where large ships, right? Smaller vessels, I mean, you don't want to strike a whale. A lot of captains here will tell you it's not a good day to strike a whale. And we even struck a whale on our boat once. It was a big deal. So,
Do they show up on the radar or sonar for the boats?
we do not. Sonar only, we don't really use forward-looking sonar at all on most of the boats, just because you put too much noise in the water, they kind of aren't running. But straight up and down, which is too late then, and then radar, not really. There's some groups called far sounder that are creating some things that can either create some sound or also look forward, but it hasn't been really adopted too well. So one of the things I spend a lot of time in, I think everybody here is probably familiar with marine traffic and other things like that, but the Coast Guard has a system called AIS, Automatic Identification System. So if you're used to like the way FAA tracks airplanes, we do the same thing with ships. So every ship that's over a certain size comes through and transmits a message every 2 to 10 seconds. We have an antenna out at the Province Lands Visitor Center, one at our office in Scituate, and then one out in Cape Ann, and then the Coast Guard actually has a whole bunch of these set up as well. But comes in, goes into our basement, that's our antenna, lots of graphics, and you get a ton of data, right? And what that was first set up for was the Coast Guard was using it first in the ports of San Francisco, so that if two ships struck in the fog, they could replay the data and say, oh, two ships struck, who's at fault? But we saw this and we're like, wow, this is an amazing research tool. We'd like to start logging that. So back in 2006, we pioneered taking that data, downloading it all, getting over 1 billion records built into our database, because just hundreds of millions of records a year are showing up just into our area. So on the right here, we're looking at just April and May in the sanctuary, and over here, you're looking at an entire year. Being a GIS guy, part of my thing is displaying that data a little bit more visually, and here's that same look of that same data, but gridded out into the top 20 percentiles. So here you can see that's the inbound and outbound lanes going into Boston for tanker and cargo ships, which are the ones we're most interested in because they kind of are faster vessels when it comes to strike. Our tug and tow guys, you can kind of picture the canal right here, and then they come up here and go into Boston or Gloucester or up into Maine or Nova Scotia. Cruise ships are doing the typical thing, us, we're just all over the place, and then all vessels together. At the same time, that shipping lane doesn't show up as importantly as it does there, but if we drop it into 3D, you can see here that most of those vessels are actually traveling down the shipping lane. And this was my first attempt at speed, because speed's kind of a hard thing to map with all those points there, but you can get the gist here, which is this is the inbound lane going into Boston, and this is the outbound lane. You can see the outbound lane is going a lot faster than the inbound lane. That's not surprising. A lot of them are timing, when to get in via tide, and when they leave, they kind of boogie out of here. So that's sort of the ship side of the whale strike problem. So now what do we do about our marine mammal sightings? So for our marine mammals, we're very lucky because whale watching was pretty much founded here in New England. We have the Center for Coastal Studies out of Provincetown and the Old Whale Center in New England, and now the aquarium all give us our data, and we help work it out to come up with where our whales are sighted, particularly humpbacks these days. Again, a lot of data, but we said, okay, now we have some whale data, we have some ship data, how do we want to figure that out? So this map seems to be a really powerful one. So everything that you're seeing here in red, these towers, are our baleen whale distribution in nautical mile grid cells. And then this is the shipping lane that runs right down through the middle of two of those towers, right? So really, really a high risk of interaction. So my research coordinator and I printed this map out. We went down to TKO valleys and had mudslides. And grabbed a pen and said, hey, after 2 mudslides, that looks like a spot right there. That looks pretty good. Why don't we go ahead and shift that? And we shifted it a whole bunch of different ways. So, oh, that looks a lot better. And we came back and ran a whole bunch of different analyses, 30 different lanes. And this ended up being a good lane, where we had almost an 80% reduction in potential, can't really call it risk, but interaction. So big success, presented it to a bunch of the scientific community to kind of, vet it out. Importantly, you can see right whales dropped significantly, which is a big part of this. But that was only a piece of it, right? So now the next thing was to go to the shipping communities, and we go to the Boston Harbor port operators, and we travel up and down the East Coast talking to all the Boston Harbor pilots and different groups. And like I said before, these guys don't want to strike whales any more than anybody else. Like, if you give us a lane to go down that's safer, this is great for us. You just got to convince our bosses that you can do that. And time is money. But the reality is, if you slow down or you shift that lane, you're only looking at like a 10 to 20 minute sort of shift in time. Now, if these guys are coming over from Africa or something like that, it's really not that big of a deal. So actually, it was the shipping industry that helped push this forward and make which was really big to have industry partners come through and success, lots of years, lots of people. This map is famous. It's a ridiculously simple map that I made, but it's hanging up in the Smithsonian. It's on Ocean Hall in DC, so if you ever get a chance to go there. And in fact, it was so successful that first President Bush and then President Obama used it as the only example of successful marine spatial planning at the time. It's in the Ocean Policy Task Force. So it's a really big thing. Since then, we've helped San Francisco shift their lane for blue whales and some stuff in Canada. So it's a really cool project, but it comes down to if anybody's ever wants to get into the GIS field, I highly recommend it because a picture speaks 1,000 words, a map speaks 1,000 words as well. I'm going to take a sip of water for a second, and then move on to something. So, everybody's familiar with the right whale, and probably a few of us in here might have a right whale license plate. I can say thank you for getting a right whale license plate. It helps fund some of this research that you're going to see now, which comes through the International Fund for Animal Welfare. Where did my clicker go? So we started this project called Right Whale Corporate Responsibility Project, right? So the whole idea is to get corporations, corporate responsibility is a big buzzword in the industry right now. So we said, well, let's try to do some better work with the industry to try to get compliance with these very specific rules. So right whales are critically endangered. There's, depending on the week or the year, 350 to 400 animals left, and of those, very few of them are breeding females. So NOAA got sued a whole bunch of times and said, no, let's not let right whales die. So everybody rallied together quickly to try to figure out ways to get data and to deliver messaging that would maybe help that. And the pressure was on us. So what NOAA did, not us, but our parent agency, NOAA, developed these rules, which are all up and down the East Coast, but they're in zones where vessels larger than a certain size, I think 65 feet, have to slow down to 10 knots or less during right whale seasons. Two of those zones, Cape Cod Bay and Offers Point, fall in the sanctuary. So we helped to work with NOAA to develop this corporate responsibility project, which I said is to really hold the companies accountable for things in hopes that we'll increase vessel compliance with the right whale shipwreck protection rule, and also recognize the achievements of those vessels that are following the rules, which I think is always part of the missing part of the puzzle, and then hopefully protect right whales along the way. So my job as a GIS guy first is to go through and take all the data for those time frames and look at day by day. This is a map of day by day vessels, and you can see green being under 10 knots, that yellow being 10 to 11, kind of a little bit of speeding, but not bad, and then red, which is totally non-compliant. And there all this up on the right. So take all those transits, it's a lot of transits, over 2,000 transits. And then, because who doesn't like getting report cards, we make up report cards for every vessel that goes through those areas. So here you're looking at transit by transit, so day by day really, how much total distance traveled was in compliance and out of compliance. And then all their vessel particulars, and we give them a map. This has sort of two effects, right? One is saying, oh, you're not doing good here, but also we're watching, right? So I think that's a powerful message. So then we take their least compliant transit, drag it over there, and then say, okay, let's slow that down. Now, if you were to take this least compliant one and slow it down to 10 knots, how much time would that cost you? A lot of the times, this is a pretty extreme example, it would only cost you like 15 minutes worth of time. I think that's important messaging to say too. Say, hey, for 15 more minutes, you can become compliant. And hopefully help them, prevent them from getting in trouble, because there are large fines if they continue to do this. So NOAA strangely wouldn't allow us to send out bad certificates, but we could send out A's and A pluses. They still all get report cards. So if they do well, they get these lovely little printed things that actually some of the captains hang up on the vessels. We give them some statistics as to how they did in comparison to other companies, which is really important. There's a little bit of shaming going on here, nice and public shaming. But in general, you can see we're largely compliant, right? And that was, at the time of the rule, it was important to show that vessels were complying with the rule, else they'd get rid of the rule for some like clause reasons. So, and this is how they looked over the years since we started the project all the way through. They've been getting better and better. These Fs, ironically, we're really looking into those. Like, what the heck's going on? It amazes me that we had this year. I'm working on it right now for 2022s. They had, I'm sorry, 2023s. Geez, I can't even think what year it is. Yeah. All the new vessels. We had 523 vessels. Of those 523 vessels, like 400 of them were new vessels that had never been through the sanctuary before. It's just unbelievable to me, especially during COVID, a lot of these vessels, like, change hands midship. Like, they'll be coming overseas and all of a sudden they say, oh, oil's a little bit more here, let's sell it to this company, we'll get more, penny to the dollar and thing. So really, really hard to get the messaging out there to vessels that have never had any before. So trying to fix that, but it's a tough one. Only because we're short on time, I'll rush through some of these. Every vessel gets, a description signed of the project and signed by our superintendent, also the regional administrator, NOAA, and the International Fund for Animal Welfare. If their company deserves it, because a lot of these companies have 15 vessels or something like that, the company gets a certificate. And then each vessel gets a report card and a certificate, as well as the sort of shaming things to how they did in comparison to others. And then we have an app that they can, get all the suite and all the right labels. This is really cool. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time now, and it's very rare that we get feedback from the industry. You kind of feel like you're working, we're just doing science for the sake of doing science. This is neat because, we get lots of responses from companies, everything from phone calls to letters to faxes. Sometimes those letters are good, saying, hey, we want to thank you for the certificate, we're very proud of it. To, in this case, we might have been speeding, it's because we were coming out of the canal, there was a current pushing us or something like that. To other ones, they're like, uh-oh, we failed to observe the right strip strike reduction rule, we're going to get our orders on this, we're going to take immediate steps to stop this. In this extreme example, we were doing something or other, right? Really, really cool to get feedback. All means they're paying attention, it's very rewarding.
Company, LLC in Staten Island, New York. We just received your packet for the right whale compliance, and we got quite a certificate. Thank you very much. One of our vessels, however, the Rhino were twins, NSI number C67496470. I got the data page with the vessel information, but we did not receive a certificate for it. All of the vessels and certificates were intact in the packet.
Yeah, so it's great that we are accent. So yeah, we get a lot of great feedback. It's a really rewarding project, and we continue to do it to this day. So we usually send them out in January when regular season starts again. But I think even more so than getting those letters, this is sort of our real sign of success. Is that this is Costco and MSC, so these are the two largest shipping companies in the East Coast. They got A's, and they decided in their own trade journal to start promoting that we're doing really good white whale work. Right? So this was a huge kudos, and this is a non-regulatory thing that we're doing to try to corporate responsibility up and help white whales, and it's working pretty well. So it's a success on our end. So to switch topics here a little bit, we do a lot of work with acoustics. It's certainly one of the most rapidly growing fields in our industry. We like to say we have a wired sanctuary out there. A whole bunch of different things that we're doing for years. We've been using these things called pop-ups for marine autonomous recording units, MARUs, that were developed at Cornell University. This is our boathouse, which essentially this is just a giant glass sphere. They have like 2-inch thick or an inch thick glass, I guess. A whole bunch of batteries, a computer system in there, some strobe lights, and then at the top of that, right there, you can see this little PVC pipe that comes out and a hydrophone on it, or an underwater microphone. What's neat about these is they're all tethered to the bottom of sandbags, and they have a little burn unit right there. We place some acoustics, it burns the burlap bags off and drops them on the seafloor, and the buoy pops up. That's why we call them pop-ups. This is an example of us dropping it. We have a camera on the drop system, down it goes, gets to the bottom, hits the bottom, we play a little signal, say, hey, are you there? It responds back, says, yeah, I'm here, and we say, okay, on to the next one. We go away, and then we go out and we drop a whole bunch of others. We have a really wired sanctuary. You can see that we've had hundreds of passive acoustic recorders set up, some per, they usually stay down for about 3 months. There's a whole bunch of different units than just this one now that's kind of getting better and better over time. It's really one of the nice things about these is they don't have a surface component. So there's no buoy that goes to the surface. There's two reasons for that. One is because of entanglement for whales and also getting in the way of fishing gear, but also because it creates a lot of noise. If you can kind of think of, when you're a kid, you hold up a cup to your ear and run string over the other person, it makes a lot of noise. These are a lot quieter babies. We hear about like 5 miles away, depending on what it is. And we're listening to a whole bunch of different things, using a whole bunch of different platforms. This here is it's called a slocum glider. Essentially looks like a torpedo, but it's an autonomous vehicle that's going around, swimming along out there, constantly listening for everything that we're listening for. There's a whole bunch more of these out there. We don't have a lot of time talking about, but these are developed by UMass. But we're listening to a whole bunch of different things. Everything from environmental sound was new to me when we started this, I'm not an acoustician, but haddock and cod, haddock in particular, make this clicking sound, which you'll hear here. Clicking sound kind of sounds like a shrimp. If you're used to clicking shrimp, think of this maybe how they communicate or how they mate. And then some of our larger noises, like that's an LNG tanker, and that's a large vessel going through, so the propeller with the cavitation, and then seismic work, which we don't have much of in the sanctuary, but I can say this particular vessel was 400 miles offshore, and we were still hearing from the sanctuary, so it really has to travel pretty far. So now if we want to take that and bring in all our vessel information, so here's like a typical day in Stellwagen, so all the red boats are your whale watching boats during the day. The black vessels are AIS vessels, so large vessels going through the shipping lane, and then there's these other pink ones that just pop up every once in a while, which are fishing vessels, and that's via the system called Vessel Monitoring System, or VMS, but they only report like every half hour or hour, so it's a little harder to pick up here. So anyway, we have a good sense of where most vessels are besides recreational vessels. And then, so we know where the vessels are, but now how do we know where the whales are? Well, the white whales have this really cool sound. And I'll call it, it's this sound. That's a spectrogram on the right-hand side of what it looks like in data. So it's pretty much saying, Steve, how are you? And Steve, I'm here, right? Very, very cool sound. What's neat is that you're able to say, oh, I'm like 90% sure that's a white whale. So we take all that data and model it. We now have our large fireflies and our little fireflies, right? The little fireflies are right whale calling going on. So there are a bunch of right whales swimming around. And these large things are large vessels coming through, some large, some small. So what's really important about this work is that, some of these vessels are really, really large and have a large footprint. So if you want to think of, I can't believe next week's Thanksgiving, your Thanksgiving, everybody's talking around the table and somebody starts the dishwasher and the kids are screaming and stuff like that. It's really hard to communicate if you want the in the turkey stuffing or the out of the turkey stuffing, right? Versus not. So it's really neat to see how much masking can go on. And the way that these whales find their food is a lot of fish as well is communicating underwater. So as ships get larger and we get more and more of them, it's really important to add noise. It's one of the pressures that it is getting. It interrupts the communication space. Like I said before, we've had, a lot of money goes into right whales. There's more, 1,000 times more white whale scientists than there are white whales, and a lot of money spent on it. And one of the things that was happening while this shipping lane shift was going on was that there was this large LNG terminal that was coming in offshore, so it's kind of like right around there. So like right to where we were going to shift our shipping lane, they were putting in a large offshore deep water port for liquefied natural gas for 1,000-foot vessels that were coming in. And to their credit, they came to us and said, hey, we know we're coming here, and we know that right whales are an issue, what can we do? And we had this harebrained idea, saying, oh, we can put buoys out there that cost like $1 million a piece and listen for whales, and if here's a whale, you gotta slow down. We said, sure, not a problem, drop in the bucket. Oh, no, now we actually gotta build this thing, right? So we worked with Woods Hole and Cornell Labs to come up, and you can see, I think it's like 10 buoys from now, or plus or minus. On the left side, you can see there's an anchored buoy at the bottom. This one's a little different because it has a floating ball there, and then in between is the hydrophone. But then this one has a surface component because it has to have a satellite receiver on it. And there's a bungee cord here to kind of dampen that sound that I was talking about before. So I'll try and describe this in graphic. So you have a very large right whale swimming along, I'll call 3 of our buoys pick it up and say, I'm like 90% sure that's a right whale. It beams up the satellite, sends it over to some poor intern at 2 a.m. before the university, has to open it up and say, yep, it was a right whale, comes back to us, we beam it off the ships, it turns those buoys red, yellow actually, and they have to slow down for 10 knots. So a really successful project, near real time, takes about 5 minutes. This is the only place in the world that does this. Everybody comes to us and wants to do this. Ultimately, but it's very specific to right whales, it's very specific to our bottom characteristics, and the reality is it's way cheaper for them not to put those buoys in and just run 10 knots the entire time than it was to do these buoys. So, question? Yeah, please interrupt.
More of a comment. I'm one of those silly right whale researchers.
Yeah.
Used to be anyway. And they used to fly aerial surveys down on the water.
Oh, you're referring to the beach, Wall Wallace and Place Stormer,
Yeah, the Army Corps of Engineers would pay to keep the shipping lines open. We'd have to let them know if there was a whale in the shipping
dangerous job, and it's critical to keep, shipping happening, right? And down there in Virginia Beach, and, all the Jacksonville area, and it's, it's a much busier port than here, and they want real-time information, because otherwise the ships would never run, so thank you for that. They do not do this, they would love to do this, yeah, they do not. The only reason, so I must say, the interesting thing is that, and I have no time to talk about it a little bit more, but is that because the Coast Guard in NOAA had a permit, the liquefied natural gas terminal coming in, the Coast Guard put in their permit requirements that these vessels have to slow down, right, in order to meet this. So it was a licensing measure. But everybody else does not have to slow down. That happened for like the first 2 years, and there was a strike or two, and then the lawyers said, wait a minute, you weren't using all the information that was available to you, so other people use it a little bit more. I gotta say, even our own captain of our own vessel, we gotta say, you really need to tell me, I didn't see anything out there. It's a tough battle, we don't have to utilize that, so, but thank you, guys. And then if you have an iPhone or an Android, I recommend you can download Whale Alert. It's our free app that we developed, which takes all the right whale rules. It's a suite of all the NOAA stuff to let boaters know about it. I won't belabor it because we have had over 300,000 downloads of it, and there's a lot of people that use it. If you don't use it for whales, you can still use it because it has free nautical shots around that are updated, and it has fight information and stuff like that. We have a lot of partners that have been involved in this. It's everywhere on the East Coast, West Coast, Canada, Mediterranean, and now we're going off to Madagascar as our next spot, I think, the next month. So it's a really successful project, and a lot of people involved in it. In fact, it was so successful that we worked with the Massport to go, and that's me and my research coordinator, Dave Wiley, who I close to this talk and my research too, got to get on the corner of Carnival Glory and go on Norwegian Dawn. And get up on the bridge of these ships and actually install Whale Alert on their vessels. It was really cool. And then if you've been over the Tobin Bridge, you've seen we all call it the Toyota boat, I think, but really the NYK, Ro-Ro car carrier. Same thing there, go up and installing it up on the bridge there. That was intimidating, I gotta admit. That's their lawyer, the environmental lawyer, or NYK. They have hundreds of vessels, right? It's a really large shipping company. He was very serious about it. The captain, who's off the corner, you can't really see him. He came out in a tank top. His chest hair was out to here. His cigar in his mouth. Whales, yeah. But the lawyer's here. But it was quite interesting. And then we worked with our Boston Harbor Pilots Association. Can't thank them enough. They are really our gateway to getting information out there. They're the ones that feed vessels into the port and bring them in and out, or bring them out. And even though they don't get the information as they're coming in sometimes, when they head back out there loaded up with information, you get the latest information. And then we work with the Coast Guard and our own NOAA teams to fly for whales. And in fact, the aerial survey team is actually using Whale Alert to record some of those sightings. That's Tim Cole and Deb Blocker. We used to work with them. And then if you want to use it and you happen to be out there, you can also report live whales. And you have a whole bunch of pictures to show what type of whale it is. They're all geo-referenced, so it tags them for us, whether it's alive or dead, who you should call. And then if anybody here used to be a Patriots fan, back in 2015, Apple actually used us in one of their commercials, which we thought was really cool, and we didn't even know what was going to happen. But they chose Whale Alert, and Apple said, cool, this is good, and if you watch, here it is, and there it was. Like 2 seconds. I slowed that down like 3 times. Okay, so from acoustics to seabirds, and I think I have salmons and whales, so if everybody's doing okay on time, feel free to go to the bathroom and leave if you have to. I get it. It's a lot here. Seabirds, I started with whale stuff here, and then we got into seabirds, and we got into salmon, and now we're into sand, and keep getting smaller and smaller. I can't say I was a huge bird fan, but now I'm like the biggest bird. It's just amazing. Our seabirds that we have out of the sanctuary, we have over 60 species of birds out there. Probably even more now that we've seen a little bit of climate change, we've seen some different things come in and out. But I can give talks after talks about birds, and that's a talk for a different day. But I do want to say lots of you are talking while we're waiting for people here to come in late. Always ask, is there a way we can volunteer? One thing that we're always looking for volunteers to get out of the water with us for is for our S4 Seabird survey. So it's a sanctuary seabird survey. I don't remember what the other S is for. But we work a lot with the whale watching boats. Sometimes we can get you free tickets on the whale watching boats. boats do standardized count, and they do opportunistic counts, and then we do these standardized track lines at least 4 times a year, including the Christmas bird count, which is quickly coming up, to get a good count of seabirds. And in fact, as part of the international birding area, is an important bird area, which is a really big thing. It's one of the few ones that are actually at sea. So if you're into birding, or if you're looking to get out in the water, I recommend that you contact us, and I'll have information at the end about that. These are the birds called shearwaters. This is a great shearwater. It used to be greater shearwater, but they decided to take greater off. He looks great to me. They are about the size of a seagull, I guess, right? But they live out at sea, a lot of them out in the sanctuary, but they are pretty much all over the world. There are a lot on the West Coast, a lot here, one of the most populous birds in the world for seabirds. And they're also one of the most bicaught birds, and they're also a good indicator for where the prey is. There's a lot of good things about shearwaters. So our research coordinator, Dave Wiley, has a large team, everywhere from Boston University to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to all over the place, that we've built this seabird tagging research project, where we go out with this amazing woman from the Fish and Wildlife Service, Dr. Linda Welch, who came out with us one time and said, "You guys ever thought about capturing those things and tagging them?" And we're like, "You can do that?" And she said, "Yeah, so how do you do that?" She said, "Well, you get a net and you go out and you catch them." We can't do that. So she came down, she showed us this trick, and hopefully the video plays here. So that's me driving a little boat, that's Dave, our research coordinator, investing back into the shearwater. Look!
Oh my God.
Gets a bird, trap it in there. Of course, we're like, "Oh my God, now what do we do?" So we do, the next best thing we can do is put it on this very, very important piece of scientific equipment called a pillowcase. Get the bird on board. So usually we're throwing squid. If we can, we work with the ladies this year to work with Morgan and Gobi to get a bunch of leftover scraps and throw them out, which they seem to like a lot more. Morgan came out with us, so that was amazing. So, yes.
I heard that birds will kill a ton of seabirds. Is that true?
So what, I'll show that in a second, but yeah, I can say, I'll mention that in a second. But yeah, not so much around us. We've been lucky, so turtle colonies, yeah. Another example, this is a little bit more realistic. This is kind of what you're used to seeing when there's a lot of shearwaters around. These are a bunch of students from the BU Marine program, the home program. They come out with us, we let them capture birds because it's a memorable experience for sure. Get them on board. Once we get them on board, I always kind of look at it, and these poor guys, it's going to be like, an alien abduction. It's like, oh my God, they have appendages, oh my God. They freak out. It's certainly a bit much for them. That being said, they're really resilient birds. They're diving deep into the water, sometimes down to 15 meters and clobbering with each other. Most of the problem that we have is keeping them calm, getting the sheet over their head. This is kind of a chilled out one that's been laying inside. We actually put them into cat carriers now to collect their food. But a nice chilled out shearwater that we're trying to keep cold because they tend to overheat. All their blood vessels are in their feet. So we got to try to keep their feet wet and cool. So during the summer, it's really important for us to keep cool. So there's a shearwater there. No cuts on our hands yet. They have very, very sharp bills or beaks and really, really sharp talons. So we all come home and agree. Blood brothers with the shearwaters. So we'll do everything from banding the bird in case the bird does die or turns up somewhere so we can ID it. We have these cool little gas masks that somebody at Stony Brook invented. We put it over the beak of the bird and it breathes in and out like 5 times so we can measure what they were eating over the past couple of hours. And then we take blood, to be able to sex them, be able to see what they were eating over the past couple of weeks. And then also we're doing blood blots to look for bird flu, which we fortunately have not had. These pictures were more than, within the last 2 years, you can be seeing us wearing masks and gloves out there, so we're all pretty concerned by it. We get to turn colonies up in Maine, we're slowly moving down, we're starting to see the bird flu coming for sure.
With Jeff Carlin just recently said that up to half the birds in the world die from that. I don't believe that, but it seems crazy.
Yeah, he'd be more the expert than me, but that sounds a little crazy.
It sounds crazy.
It sounds like a lot of
He
birds.
said nearly half.
Wow, that's scary. Yeah, so we are constantly on the lookout for it. There's a lot of pressures on the birds already, so that would be unfortunate. And then finally, we take different feathers out of them to be able to tell what they're eating over the course of months. And this is Linda here. I'm just holding, I do not have this skill. She's a veterinarian, and she's able to take these, $7,000 little bird tags. They have solar transmitters on them and sew them into the back of the bird. It's not really going into their skin. It's kind of going into the area that they mold their feathers off of. I can't say they probably enjoy it too much, and it's a lot of weight on them. We go for like 3% of their body weight is sort of the maximum that we put on. So like 700 grams or so is the size of the birds that we're looking at. But it's a pretty cool tag. It could last indefinitely. I think the longest we've had is 9 months that they stayed on. And there's a solar panel on it, and then that's a little transmitter that goes up to a satellite so that we can track it. We don't know if the bird dies, if the sutures fall out, if they mold it out, or just the batteries die. And these birds all die underwater, so they're under constant pressure. They're probably not well sealed over a bunch of time that wears out, so they're constantly coming in the sun. So, great question. This is what we're able to do with that data, right? I mean, they are moving around quite a bit. We try a whole bunch of different naming methods every year, and last year we did Marlboro characters, before that we did Red Sox players and stuff to try to get some interest in this, but you can certainly follow us online and track all these birds day by day, and gamble on them if you want. So these birds travel all over. You can really see the sanctuaries a hotspot. Those spots that were whale hotspots, right? They're kind of the same spots that were hotspots. These birds will fly all over. What's more interesting about them to me is that they fly all the way down to Patagonia, to their breeding colony every year, especially the ones that open up. So the fact that these little birds are flying down there, they're on their way down there now, they're around like there. What's neat about these are two separate birds, within a week of each other, they flew, and they were within like a couple miles of each other flying that same route. So how they're navigating down that far and then make the turn is really a mystery to us. In fact, a lot of the money that we get to do this research is the military. They're paying us to do it because they say, if anything ever happens and there's a lost GPS satellite, we want to know how animals can navigate. This is one of the ways that we're doing that. So we'd love to get more birds going back and back up, but we have not had that luck yet. We have a lot of papers about this, so I urge you to check it all out. So why is it important? Why are we tagging seabirds? Well, it's really, really expensive to study whales and send planes up all the time, put people at risk, put more pressure out there. Birds would be our best indicator to where everything is, right? I mean, they're searching, they're using TMS, a special chemical that's released when we feed on plankton. And we think birds can cue in on it for long distances. And it's the same thing the whales are probably cueing in on as are the fish. So these can sort of be used for proxy to where everything's happening and the productive spots are. We're using it right now to try to direct where the disentanglement team should go, saying, hey, there's high activity here, you could expect to be here instead of there. This is all really important because, there's more and more pressure out there, there's more and more people out there. We need to figure out a way to make things a little bit more dynamically. I think we're moving away from these large-scale boxes of saying, don't do this in here, to more real-time information. So as data streams become cheaper and cheaper, technology comes along, this seems to be a good way to do that. Because everybody always asks us why we're tagging birds. Well, David Kilby's putting this in, but this is Dave, he has young kids, and he's like, I need a picture of me releasing the bird. He's the big seabird scientist, right? Take the bird, oh shoot, I forgot they don't take off from the air, they take off from the water. So everybody out there is eating salmons. If you're not familiar with salmons, lots of people call them sand eels. I grew up with them, it's called as sand eels. That's the largest one I've ever seen in my entire life. They're more like, the size of a pencil at best. They start very, very small and get up to, about half that size is what you're used to seeing. So all the tuna are eating, so all the codfish, all the dogfish, all the whales are eating. If they're not here, they may be feeding on some mackerel or herring, but it's really salmon that they're targeting. I don't know, Scott, that's a good question, yeah. So it's a great shot of looking at a whale feeding on some salmon there. They live in sandy habitats. So we work with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management because one of the things that they were talking about is removing a whole bunch of sand to fix the beaches in New Jersey. And they said, well, we're just going to get a bunch of sand. There's nothing that lives there. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. There's this thing called sandlands. So we've been out, 1,800 times we've gone to these sites and used this we work with USGS and UConn. They're actually out in the water today. They just got back around like 5 today. We're doing this exact thing where they're going out, putting a camera sled down and doing a grab sampler or grabs a meter of sediment, and we bring it back up and look at it. I think I might have a video. Yeah, so that's our grab sampler there. We have a little video of us going out there, hit each site, goes down into the water. That's Katie Valentine and Dan Blackwood from USGS. We try to pioneer this. There's some sand dollars. And those are the salmon. What's amazing here is that whales are catching them when everything's catching them, they're amazing. They swim in and out of the bottom of it, but it's not there. I don't know what happens if they swim back into it and hit a rock or something. It's wild, yeah. But we had one grab, mind you, this grab's only, as big as like a microwave or something like that. It came up and had 150 sail lengths.
Wow.
So they're really patchy, and they can be, you a bunch of them here. They can be really productive spots, but really difficult fish to study. I can say right now, we've been pushing. I say that we don't regulate fishing, but we can kind of hint at certain things. One of the things that I think we've all been on board on is maybe putting in the salmon as fishery regulation. Right now, our larger agency, fisheries is not a supporter of it, because they say there's not a small enough mesh size in the gear in order to be able to catch salmon, so there's no need for a measure. And of course, we're saying, wait, that's the time to do it, because there's no economic impact of it, right? But so it's kind of this thing, but I can say that the states of Rhode Island, Maine, New Hampshire, and New Jersey have all put in their own regulation for preventing salmon as fishery. And we think it's really important. We think it's important to, you want more cod, you need more salmon, you want more of this, you want more of that. We might get there. It's a bureaucratic sort of thing. And what's interesting is that in the North Sea, it's the largest fishery. It's used for fishing, and it's almost been fished out. So it's an interesting fishery. And again, Sandwich is a paper that just recently came out by Dr. Tammy Silver at our office, just looking at the co-location between, it's hard to see here, but salmon, baleen whales, and seabirds, and they all cohabitate in the same area. So not surprising, but it needed to get out there. So this is a look at what, right now, these are being driven down to Yukon, the ones that we caught today, and putting them in different aquariums. It's strange, every year, right around Thanksgiving, give or take a week, that's when they tend to spawn. So we go out there, grab these little salmons, and field them all over, milk them, and put them on a screen, and then allow them to grow in here under different conditions, in particular under different pH levels and different temperature levels and CO levels. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but one of the reasons that we're doing that is because if everybody doesn't know, which I'm sure most of the fishermen certainly know, is that the Gulf of Maine is warming faster than anywhere else on the planet. It's 99.9% faster than the rest of the ocean. So it is, be winners and losers as far as fish and different things and changes, but at the very least, we're all recognizing we're all in hot water. We got to be paying attention to it and changing our industry to figure out how to deal with it and maybe benefit or maybe lose. So it's important to look at those salmon nets to see how they might handle it, because we've been seeing a decrease in salmon nets over time, and we off the Great South Channel, and everything's going further and further offshore and further north. And then finally, we'll end with some whale tagging stuff, which is where we spend most of our summers doing. We'll tag everything from humpbacks, fin whales, sei whales, right whales, but primarily we focus on humpback whales. So again, Dave Wiley, our research coordinator, has run the largest and longest whale tagging project anywhere in the world. We've been doing this since the mid-'80s, when whale watching really picked up quite a bit, and they were originally tagging some of the whales with denture glue. Now we've moved up to the suction cup tags, but there's a large group of people in here. Every year we have about 30 people come and rotate through. This last couple of years we've been leaving right out of Scituate. We run 2 houses up on Lighthouse Point and Rebecca Road. Other times we'll go out and chat and follow whales down there, Provincetown, if it's the right time here. So a bunch of people to thank in that. Some of you are here in the room, so thank you. Other years, the Navy decommissioned some 180-foot ships a bunch of years ago. This one was the Nancy Foster, and gave them to NOAA and said, hey, we don't have anything to do with them. You guys want to do something out of them? And yeah. And they lent us this boat, so we were able to get all 17 of us at the time out with them and 14 crew, and pretty much use it as a floating hotel so that we can get out on boats like this and get alongside whales. So it's just a spy out and come back. This was like my first year doing it. And you actually zoom in on that picture, you can see I actually have binoculars looking at the whale. Can't get them around. This is sort of our signature shot. We'd be in a lot of trouble if you have to wear closed-toe shoes on the boat or whatever. And the whale does not have a mustache, that's a shearwater going by, but that's a little calf just doing some breaching. Same calf, well I don't have it, but the same calf that's doing the flip over the next one. And we have a whole bunch of different ways tagging. This is my first year doing whale tagging. This is the typical way that we do it. It's an inflatable boat. We come up along with feeding whales, and we have, this is a 22-foot pole with a tag on the end of it. It's essentially the same size as like an iPhone with 4 suction cups in it. We use suction cups because they're non-invasive. acoustics, and it has some telemetry on it. So we're pretty much able to, see how the whale is behaving underwater. Like I said, they last about 20 hours. Depending on which tag you use, it changes a little bit. You're always fighting battery power or disk space, so, and what sort of sensors you can have on it. This one has a lot of acoustics, so it only lasts about 20 hours. But a full tag, and these things are amazing. You take it and drop it from this high, and it'll stay. Here's an example of some of the tagging. One of the ways that we used to do it, this is not me tagging, this is another guy. That's Mason Line, original whale sailor, was directed an intern in the movie. That's a cantilever pole. That's a 40-foot pole up the front of our boat. Yeah, so pretty long, right? It works really well because when you stick the tag on the back of the whale, you want that tag to be right on the center line. So that when it rolls, it's really a roll versus a pitch and all that sort of stuff. However, it's really, really hard to get in that position. And in fact, the whale can fluke on us. So we kind of switched doing it from that way to now we have a whole series of ways that we're doing it and a whole arsenal of tags. This is the cat's tag, which has cameras built into it. I like to call it the tree frog tag. It looks like a tree frog. Some acoustic tags. This here is the one that I'm putting on there is a critter camera. It's not Geo's critter cam. People have watched critter cam footage before. It's very, very large and a little outdated now, but we still use it. And yeah, this is just a good example of tagging. This is the approach from the Center for Coastal Studies, and we up on the pulpit here. So this is how we have it now. We have a 21-foot boat with a pulpit, again with that like 22-foot long pole. So good success. We only show the good tag.
Do you retrieve much of the company?
We have to recover them. Yeah. So the tags are low.
Frequency and all that?
There it is. Yeah. They're tiny little antennas that stick out of the water. So you can get them like 7 miles away. But the tags are like $10,000 a piece for throwing the data on them. So lots of whales out there, lots of blame on them. And we've tagged, this past summer we've tagged 35 whales, which is a crazy amount of number of whales. These are the ones that we tag over and over again. But like I said, one of the largest whale databases in the country for tagging, 200 whales tagged, and 800 hours worth of data. I can also say we had, this year we had the BBC reporters out with us for most of the cruise, and Netflix show coming out, which was more so talking about young scientists coming into the field and stuff. So they'll keep you posted on that stuff. Everybody was asked, the whales respond. Typically, we like them not to respond. This is Bilbo, who is sound asleep, and so that's sort of the fun part, the tagging side. Then we go right into data side. So, we have our boat driver who has to be pretty skilled at driving around the whales. We use laser rangefinders, these really expensive things that were unknown to us for many years. They never asked back for. Thankfully, they record range and bearing to like the millimeter when you're shooting in a certain direction, so we can hook it up to a GPS to see where that whale is swimming over it. And then we have, I call them our whale psychics, but really the naturalists on board that are writing down all the behavior of the animal, and they're able to tell the names. We do that for every service thing. We write down every blow, every which way they roll, which way they was down, how many are in the group size. It's an incredibly hard job. You asked about yes, it is okay to track them. We use Yagi antennas, so it's just a VHF transmitter that's on the top. We can hear them, if they're floating on the surface. We can hear them from about 7 miles away. If they're on the whale, we can only get up for a second or two, and the antenna's not up, you can only get them like a mile or two. So we spend lots of time looking for tags. Most of the tags stay on that full length. Sometimes they come off. Sometimes they come off because of breaching and stuff like that. So, but there's the tag in the water. So it's really interesting that large ship when we have the CO and XO, like, you need to come, you're going to go out there. bring me 7 miles in that direction and pick up a pencil floating in the water? Like, nope. Wow, he couldn't believe it. So, kind of fun. So our job as scientists and data people are to take that tag data and essentially peel back the ocean, right? So that we can become like a terrestrial biologist and see what these whales are doing underwater. So this is an example. This is our friend up at UNH on our small Center for Coastal Ocean Mapping, taking this to one of our tagged animals that you're listening to and seeing. Swimming along, we'll go ahead and speed that up. And swimming along, we have whale tag, we have other whales tagged in the area. That yellow thing you see in the background there, that's the ship that went through earlier with the fish finder or the echo sounder, and that's sand lands on the bottom, right? And miraculously, we've been waiting for this for years, our 2 whales came together. And started communicating to each other. And we're like, oh my God, this is great. We've been looking for cooperative feeding forever. This is great. So this whale goes down, gets down to about 15 meters, seems to be the magical depth that they go to start blowing bubble nets. So they swim in a room about this size and blow bubbles. If they go deeper than 15 meters, by the time the bubbles get to the surface, it creates a hole in the net. So this is that magical 15-meter thing, probably feeding on those sand lands that are there. And at the surface, we're like, oh, there's another whale there. This is great. We can't wait to look at this data. Well, this is essentially like, your bad cousin who's just like hanging out in the room. You're doing all the work and then comes over and steals your food. So this guy here comes up, usually they'll come up once and they'll do a tail slap real quick to stun the fish into a tighter ball, go back down and then come up with their mouths open and feed on it. And this whale waits for just that right time for that slap to happen. And after that slap happens, this guy comes in and mooches off of it, does it 3 more times. Really cool stuff. So that's one of the ways that we look at data. It kind of gives us a good situational awareness. That's our tag boat, our tag boat, the big ships in the background. It gives us a good sort of sense of it. We also work with the Center for Coastal Ocean Mapping. This amazing guy named Colin Ware, who's a visual guy that has gotten big time into whales, and he developed this thing called TrackPlot just for us. And it's really groundbreaking and showing, this is a track of a whale over the course of a couple of hours. So what you're looking at is each little clip in there is about 2 seconds in time. Every time you see a red thing, that's a fluke stroke, which you can pick up on the accelerometers on the tag. And then the yellow things, that's when the whale rolls to one side, one at 45 degrees or another. And what's neat about that is we can see the depth of the whale, we can play it forward and backwards and see the time of day to link it up to our data, and we can play it back and actually look at it and see how that whale is behaving in the water. Really fun, really cool stuff. It opened our eyes to a whole bunch of things. And I think it would be a great motion odyssey ride if anybody wants to. So back to the sand lands, right? So for years people said that they, we all know that they feed on sand lands. They come up to the surface and do these bubble nets and feed up at the surface. So this is a daytime sort of look at that. The sand lands also hang out at night and they go down and burrow into the sand. Oh, okay, cool. Well, you go ahead and look at the data. This is a time depth plot that you're looking at here. So you're looking at the time across the bottom and depth on the up and down axis. And as you come across here, you can see during the day it was doing all this bubble net feeding up and down, and feeding on all the prey in the water column. But then the second the night hit, it goes down to the bottom and starts doing this rolling behavior, kind of mowing the lawn, feeding all night long, which was really new to us. We always had a sense that they were doing that. But the fact that we actually think they're feeding more down here than they are up here, this is sort of like the cherry on top of the ice cream for a lot of it. And we had indications of this for years, and the naturalists can speak more about this, but just like humans, there's left-handed whales and right-handed whales. They typically tend to feed together, kind of trawling along a left-handed one next to a right-handed one. You can see there's an example of that tagged animal rolling onto its left side and on its rostrum, its cheek, really. You can see it has scuff marks from probably feeding along the bottom all the time. So neat stuff. More recently, just these past 2 years, technology has really caught up with, lack of a better word, drones. There's a lot of policy going on as to how to get permits to be able to fly drones around, but we pioneered actually dropping tags onto whales. Really neat. We owe a lot of this to Ocean Alliance. Our friend Ian Kerr up at Gloucester, the old paint factory up there, has opened up Snotbot. He has funding through Captain Picard, Jean Picard from Star Trek is one of his biggest donors and involved with us on this. And he said, yeah, we think we can do this. So miraculously, we were able to go out, fly a really large drone, get right over to the whale and drop the tag. It has this little lawn dart and just to arrange the tag right and drops it. I think I have a video pretty neat. What's really neat about this is the whales don't even respond to it. We can get to the whale really fast instead of trying, it's like playing whack-a-mole out there when we're out there with our boats. This is really good for the whale, good for us. And I think our tag data has been biased for years because we're always tagging the easiest animals to tag. And this gives us a chance to tag some more difficult whales. So really new, really cool stuff. It's getting a lot of press. It's neat, so stay tuned. Dave just had a paper that's come out, which I think is one of the neater things. Back to the bottom feeding thing, I think I'm almost done the slide, but it's still a little wrong. This year is actually now camera footage from one of our tags. And this is a bunch of whales all feeding on the bottom. So if you think of this whale, the tag right on its right side, there's another whale going down to the bottom. And I know it's hard to see, it's not exactly super bright, but they're on the bottom, they're barely moving. And on the bottom, there's a whole bunch of salmon in it. So they're opening their mouths, whether they're corralling them, sucking them in, how the heck they're finding them. It's pretty amazing, yeah. And you can see there's another one of our tags and another one there. So really, really neat stuff. See if they do it one more time here or not. But what always amazes me is seeing this when we all sit around and we come back every night, we're exhausted, right? And then somebody puts on these videos and we're just like mesmerized. It's like, right? Those are all salmon right around that. So. Not moving, right? So how do they capture them? And what's really neat is we have a postdoc working with us right now, looking at the orientation, because these whales separated and they come back, and every single time it's the same orientation. One's always coming in from 2 o'clock, and this one's always coming in. So it's a very coordinated thing. There's no grunts going on. They're doing it at night, so there's no like visual cues. So we don't really know what they're doing, but totally mind-blowing. So cool stuff. So I want to close sort of by saying, it's all cool research, great pictures, and I'm so thankful for your all that you be able to show all this stuff. We do this research for a real reason, which is, most of the whales are either entangled, or dying because of entanglement, or dying because they're getting struck by ships. There's not a lot of whales dying from natural causes. Right now, we've done, I should say, everybody in this room in NOAA and fishermen and ships have done a lot to reduce that number. By slowing ships down during certain times of years, the lobstermen, if any in the room know that one of the big success stories is that if you watch this video, you can see this is one of our tagged animals flying through some simulated gear, missing that ground line. Between each of the lobster traps on the bottom, there used to be floating line between them so that they wouldn't get caught up in rocks and stuff. The lobstermen, there was also one of the number one spots that whales were entangling, right? I think there's a lot of gear out there, and the fact that they're not getting entangled more often shows signs of hope because they've been getting entangled all the time. But I think just like eating my Cheerios this morning, my finding, oh crap, you make mistakes and you're doing other things, right? So there's important information that we're trying to get out, and I think the best way that we can do that is sharing this with other people. And in fact, it's the fishermen and the shippers that really like to see this. Their data on really go. And we don't do a ton anymore with protecting the both ends of the borders. We still have partnerships built with, the Dominican Republic where they go to breed. All those governments, frankly, are corrupt and they change every couple of years. So just after the 3 years, you finally get something in place, it's a whole new regime that comes in. So, but we do have a sister sanctuary program where we're really trying to protect, especially our whales in both ends of the breeding areas. If this wasn't a long enough talk, which I know it was, you can always read our 400-page management plan. First off, check us out online. And with that, I thank you. Open-ended questions, if you don't feel like asking them, I'll be sticking with them.
One question.
Yeah.
So, a lot of whales die around the turbines, like Rhode Island and
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So how do we just bring that problem up here? What do you think was built? Was it the sound?
I have my NOAA hat and I have my non-NOAA hat. My NOAA hat is, we don't have the data to properly answer that question. Yes, my non-NOAA hat is this oil company calling it.
Think so? Yes.
I think that there's, shipping is a thing, and there's more ships working on wind turbines, but as far as like noise fields and stuff like that, it's all improved. And, there's been some, health die-offs down there and all, but it seems to be, everything they're being told, I'm a GIS guy,
Right.
our scientists and our advisory council and people that typically mean a certain way still say, yeah, this seems a little bit too complicated. But that's my take on it. I don't know if anybody else has, you got any other questions? there is nothing out there to stop them from dumping stuff, right? From what I understand is that the EPA we thought EPA was going to come in, EPA said, yeah, we have no regulations, and not putting anything in there that we technically regulate. The NRDC or NRC, I can't remember, whatever commission, we submitted a letter as a sanctuary. We couldn't even get our sister agency, NIMS, to submit a letter, saying, hey, you guys are going to harass, kill lobsters, kill fish, kill whales. But sanctuaries has a little bit of teeth in their legislation that says, you can't put anything, even though they're not dumping into the sanctuary, they can harm resources that get to the sanctuary. So, our right whale, so we sent some pictures, ironically, we were doing tagging with the drones, right off the power plant, with the right whale right there in the background. Here's our doing, and I can say that, our superintendent, Mr. Cole, he's from Plymouth, and this is very near and dear to his heart. He's really been fighting a big battle, but it's a difficult battle to fight. I don't know. I think that they put a stop on it for now, but
Yes?
You mentioned your enthusiasm when you were young. I work at the middle school, and every single year, I
Thank
have
you for our
students who talk about how much they love working on boats.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm between not only the young teen boys, but we have some girls that work on the boats. The enthusiasm is remarkable in town, and we also have the Stellwagen Bank program that's done at Gates every year, and it's really well received.
it's truly, Jean Chambers at the middle school, I know she just retired, but we can't thank her enough, and all the students. I mean, it's really the students run that day just as much, and it's amazing. It's the most amazing thing I've seen since I've worked here. I wish other schools would pick it up. It's been great.
And the whale, what's his
The
name?
inflatable whale salt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
salt.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, he's so cool.
She is in our closet if you ever need it. It would fit in here actually